Hello, friends. Welcome to Prophetic Worldview. I'm so glad that you're here today. I have a very special guest, J.J. Carrell, author, speaker, uh, truth speaker, truth crusader. So many great things that God's doing through his life, and become a friend of our ministry and church. And we're just so glad to have him back on. Before I bring him back on, I want to give real quick scripture. It's Psalms 11, verse 3. It says, "If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do?" Very simple, but yet profound. And then we're watching in America the implosion, the explosion, the destruction, the dismantling of the foundations of our forefathers and of our rights and our liberties and our freedoms. There is no doubt about that. And I want to bring JJ on to talk about that and talk about how we can repair the breach and what's going on in his life and his documentaries that are coming up at jjcarrell.com. So, JJ, man, welcome to the program. Glad you're here, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me back. I appreciate it. And you're right, the scripture you read, you can't build anything on a faulty foundation. And our foundation in America has just crumbled. And it doesn't matter if you're right or left or in the middle. You can look at what's happening in America and say, this is not right. Even the far left crazies can say, no, everything's off center, off kilter. Well, it's because of you. It's two people, two groups of individuals allowed this to happen. The crazy left, where they think men can have babies and all the transgender and LGBTQ, XYZ stuff. And more important than them, it's the men in America. We allowed this to happen. And more focused on the blame is the Christian man. We allowed this to happen to our nation. We sat there where God told us and instilled in us to protect our wives, our women, our children. And we sat silent as the crazies went into our churches, took our churches, went into our institutions in economy, media, business, and destroyed it. And we're sitting here silent because we're afraid of being called bad names and called a bigot, a xenophobe, whatever. But we remain silent, and then they've taken over. And look at what we're left with. We're left with a spiritually devoid world. You can see it. Evil's prowling this earth. And it's hard for people to hear that, but it is true. It's happening. I mean, we can go through the litany of sins that are happening in America right now. And it's undeniable what has happened to our country. Now, can we take it back? I don't know. I'll just be very, very honest with you. I don't know. Do we have the ability? Yes. But do we have the will? I don't know. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely right. You said it perfectly, because I've always been saying this. Man has basically been neutered. He's been, he's been spayed. He's been watered down. He's been knocked down to where he's not taking his position. And God designed it to where, we're the head. We were the head of the family union. I mean, that's what exactly Adam was supposed to be. And of course, he fell then, and he succumbed to that seduction and lie as well. And here we are today in the same boat. And as he lost that golden opportunity, if you will, of the garden, we're losing this opportunity of this garden that God gave us of America. And you're absolutely right. Where is the man, especially the Christian man? And I'm not talking about, the Pat, I would say Pat Boone, but I was thinking about the guy, with the, just rabid going out there with a musket and that type of thing. I'm not talking about that. Just being a man by the standard that we're supposed to carry biblically. So, tell us some more, man, about what's going on in your assignment. And I've caught a couple trailers of what's happening. Man, wow, this is going to be powerful. This is the movie.
Thank you, and thanks for allowing me to come on and talk about my documentary.
Yeah,
and just take about a minute to try to explain what's happened, because when the last time I talked to you and I was on, we talked about my book, and we talked about me going on this journey, if you will, to prove treason, that the American federal government has committed treason against the body of America by allowing illegal aliens to come in. And I went into the documentary, me and my partner Ryan Madden went into the documentary knowing that we were going to talk about the invasion, how it took place, who did it, why did they do it, talk about the numbers, show the manifestation of the treason, like in the big cities and small towns across America that are being destroyed. And we knew that the other part of the movie was also going to be about human trafficking, and more specifically, child trafficking.
Hmm.
However, never did I imagine that I would, and Ryan and I would uncover this evil that basically took over my documentary. It just took it over. Meaning every time that we flew out, we went to 10, 11, 12 different states, 25 cities across America. And every time that I went, everything evolved around child sex trafficking. Everything.
Wow.
It got halfway through the documentary, Ryan and I we were just crisscrossing, right? Fly in somewhere, drive, go interview someone, go document the child migrant centers and everything in between. And we were driving one day, and I don't even remember where it was because it all kind of blends in together. And we looked at each other, and we're like, okay, this is what we know. We can't just do this documentary and just walk away. We're going, God, if God blesses us enough, this was our sophomore thinking, right? At the time, when you're in the midst of insanity, you're trying to come up with some plans, right?
Sure.
And our idea was, he's a Christian man as well. And we said, if God blesses us and provides us with enough sales in this documentary, then we will go back out immediately in November and begin filming, interviewing, everything about child sex trafficking, and create a child sex trafficking document. That's going to take 6 to 9 months from November. Wow. Getting money, traveling, filming, then the editing process is so difficult. But what God did was just typical of him, right? I love that country music song. I don't know the song, but one of the lyrics is, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans, right?
Right.
He wants you to plan, but he's going to take you where he needs you to go. We filmed, sir, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of video, hundreds of hours. So about 3 weeks ago, my business partner calls me, and we've had no issues at all. Personality, filming, money, everything. God just kind of poured it on us. And he says, we have a problem. And I was like, oh, so this is new. We haven't had a problem since day one.
Yeah.
He says, the child sex trafficking information and film that we have is too big to put in our documentary. It's dominating everything. And he said, however, we have more than enough film right now to prove our theory that the federal government is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. That's our thesis. And I said, okay, so do we need to fly out? Because we had already pre-scheduled meeting certain groups. Do we need to fly out and film? He goes, no, we have more. He said, I have enough film to do 2 or 3 child sex trafficking documentaries. And I said, okay, now we agree. Okay, then let's do 2 documentaries. We're actually going to do 2 documentaries. And I said, okay, well, which one goes first? How do we do this? And we both came to the moral conclusion, well, how can we say that this is a crisis, that we know it's a crisis, and then we're going to release it in October or November? What? No.
Right.
We have to release it first. So we made a decision that we're going to split our documentary. And the first part is treason, trafficked. That comes out September 19th. And that's all about the child sex trafficking. And we are going to prove that the federal government is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. The second part is treason, invaded. And we are going to release that in October 24th. We are frantically trying to edit this as fast as we can. Editing is a beast in its own right. So that, thank God it's not in my wheelhouse. So this is Ryan Matta and his team.
Yeah.
They're doing it. And we have to have it ready by September 13th because we're going to a film festival. First 1A film festival in Greenville, Texas on the 13th. And our documentary is going to be for VIPs only. So I'm going to get a very quick understanding how my documentary, our film, is going to be received.
Wow.
So I went into this thinking I'm going to do my first documentary. I know exactly what I'm going to do. This is what it's going to look like. This is how we're going to prove what we're going to prove. And then bam, just like everything God does, everything changed. Everything changed. And I have a lot of anxiety, and I'm not an anxious man.
Yeah.
But how is this going to look? Like, I haven't seen it, right? So that's the other part of it. I've seen parts of what Ryan is put. I trust Ryan completely, but what I've seen has been like, wow, like, okay, this is going to really, really push the envelope for people. Like, not graphically, but
Right.
we're going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about it in sophomore terms, because what we learn, we can't talk about it in generic terms.
No.
And I go speak about this. I have a speech tomorrow night that I have to go talk to a Republicans women group, but I'm going to synagogues and churches and speaking about this. And once I get to this part of the child sex trafficking, I tell them, listen, this is going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to talk to you. And I say this out loud, and I know it sounds crass, but I tell everyone I speak to, I understand that this is uncomfortable because evil is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
However, I simply do not care about your feelings, because whatever you are feeling now doesn't even move the Richter scale when I'm talking about a 5-year-old child that's being raped 5, 10, 15, 20 times a day, not a year, a day. Yeah. So whatever you may be feeling right now, it is insignificant compared to what this person. Now, and for your audience to understand, what I've discovered is the federal government is trafficking children. There is no way around it. And let me, just so you have an understanding of who I interview, okay? And I could give you their name, but I'm just going to rant, because it ran about 12 people. Let me just tell you their titles. 2 women that work in the federal government that are HHS whistleblowers. A United States Citizenship and Immigration Service intel analyst that became a whistleblower and got fired. 2 FBI agents, whistleblowers, got fired. A gentleman that worked for 8 years inside the NGOs that traffic the children, knows inside and out. I talked to large organizations that go and hunt down these lost kids, rescue them. I talked to an organization that goes and does criminal investigations on the big organizations. They bring it all together, give it to law enforcement executes the search warrants, rescues the children, and then they move on to the next one. So I've interviewed across the spectrum, and with my experience in the United States Border Patrol. And I'm telling you, I had no idea. I'm just going to be honest. I thought I had some level of understanding, but I had none. None. I'm able to, what's going to make this documentary very unique, both documentaries, child sex trafficking and the invasion, is I have a unique ability to pull all the pieces together from my law enforcement perspective and say, okay, this is how the dots connect. This is how the crime is being committed. Whereas everyone else is very segmented in their data, in their perspective, and they're not connecting the dots. So it's not going to be for the faint of heart, and I don't really care, because there are right now 500,000 unaccompanied alien children called UACs have crossed the border from infancy to 17 years old, and they are all lost, every last one of them. We're not even discussing right now the hundreds of thousands of U.S. citizen children that go missing in America. How is that? Look, I got a pen in my hand. Do you know how hard it is to really lose a pen, right? And then I'm going to look around my room and on my desk, oh, there's my pen. Yeah. We're talking about losing a child, for God's sake. Yeah. And why I know that I am speaking the truth, because I'm sure I'm like you. There's times where I sit back in the silence and in the quiet, and I question myself. Am I reading this right? Am I looking at it from a very prejudiced lens? And can I look at it from a different angle, a different perspective? But I've done that ad nauseum, and I keep coming back to the same thing. And not only that, is evidence is piling up behind me saying, no, you're right. You're right. I'm going to give you two examples real quick. First, in 2023, Javier Becerra, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, HHS, admitted in Congress that they lost 85,000 children. I knew that was a lie. There was no way it was 85,000. I knew it, but I said, okay, let's just go with it. 3 days ago, the Inspector General of the Department of Homeland Security, which is their Office of Internal Affairs, came out and said, DHS has lost, HHS and ORR has lost over 325,000 children. Basically all of them. I know the number's closer to 500,000. They just have not admitted it yet. They will. The second thing, the guy that I interviewed that worked inside the NGOs, Catholic Charities, Southwest Keys, said, as I'm standing outside of these facilities, they're raping children in there right now. I said, who's raping? The people that work there are sexually assaulting and raping these children. I've seen it. He's telling me, I've seen it. And then he goes, that's all I'm going to talk about. I'm not talking about it anymore. His name's Carlos Ariana. You can go and he's been in front of Congress, everything. And he just says, I'm not talking about it anymore. It's taken me a long time to get this out of my head. I'm not talking about it anymore. Okay. What happens last month? Well, Department of Justice, our corrupt. Do you know how bad it is for our Department of Justice to go and sue Southwest Keys because of multiple allegations of sexual assaults and rapes inside of their facilities? Do you know that congressmen and senators have tried to go into Catholic Charities, Southwest Keys? They're giant. These are giant child detention facilities. Southwest Keys bought a Walmart, the biggest Walmart you've ever seen in your life, and they house thousands of kids in there. And do you know they won't let congressmen or senators in? They bar them from coming in. Why? Because they're raping children. But our gutless congressmen and senators, you know what they say? Well, can't get in there. Oh, what? You're in Texas, for God's sake. Call the AG Paxton, get the Texas Rangers down here, kick the doors in. There's children in there I want to see. No. And this is where I'm going to just say it out loud. It's going to make people uncomfortable, and they're going to say, oh, that's crazy, but I'm going to be proven right. The reason why nothing's getting done is because pedophilia runs through every fabric of our society, and it's inside of our politics, because I have been told by multiple people that there are congressmen, plural, senators, plural, vice presidents, plural, and presidents with an S that are pedophiles, and they can prove it. Holy smokes. This is what's happening in America. And you say, I love this pushback that I get, sir. Well, you know, that's kind of out there. Oh, really? Okay, let's go through factual stuff that we know right now. Over 60 million babies have been murdered inside and outside the womb, and outside the vaginal canal of women since Roe v. Wade. 60 million. We are mutilating our children as young as 3, 4, 5 years old, ripping their genitals off and changing their sex. We're allowing LGBTQ inside, drag queens, inside our libraries, our schools, and our parades. Men with full erections and fake breasts are dancing and fondling children in real time.
Yes.
And two more things. And United States of America, #1 consumer of child pornography in the world. 2, United States of America, one of the top nations in the world that physically pays cash for sex with children. And you're telling me, with all of that is factually true, you can't take that little step forward and go, well, God, yes, there's child sex trafficking. Yes, the politicians are involved. Yes, media, the entertainment, sports, religion. This is the last taboo that has to be brought to its knees in order to bring in the destruction of the world. Is the destruction. Listen, America has to wake up.
Yes.
Not only wake up, but be so angry that they want to rip these people to shreds and eradicate this from our society. But they don't. Let me give you an example of how prevalent this is. And when I interview people, I wall them off, meaning They don't know who I've spoken to, right? Because I don't want it to get, I don't want stories to kind of merge together. I want them to stand alone. So I'm asking this gentleman, his name is Basil. He's a former CIA operative and special forces in the military. And he has a group of men that are just like him, CIA special forces. And I said, if I was president of the United States, tell me, I would hire you and I would tell you, I want this eradicated yesterday. Not today. Yesterday, I wanted it done. How many law enforcement officers do you need? He looks me dead in the eye and he says, I need 500,000 to start. I said, what? He goes, that's to start, JJ. I said, okay, hold on. There's only 660,000 law enforcement officers, federal, state, and local across America.
Wow.
He goes, I know. I need 500,000 to start. Then I can tell you what I need after that. I go talk to a gentleman that got fired from the FBI. Highly intelligent. He's a whistleblower. Whistleblower. You can't get fired for being a whistleblower. Gets fired for whistleblower. I ask him the same question, and he goes, yeah, you need about 500,000.
Wow.
I said, oh. He goes, you don't understand. 500,000 law enforcement officers just to start. That's just what, once you pull back, when you pull on this thread, it just goes on and on and on and on. That is what's happened to the United States of America. When you remove God from everything, and then the Christian men stand there impotent, weak, and gutless, and they brutalize our children, you allow our women to murder their babies, and then we're all shocked that we live in this moral cesspool, and no one can understand, well, how did we get here? And this is what I'm going to show in this documentary. I'm going to prove that the United States federal government is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history.
Yes.
And there's no way around it. And I'll go one step further and tell you this. These interviews were so involved, okay? Meaning they had so much information. They were inside the beast for so long that they had endless stories and they had endless evidence. These interviews would last 2 hours to 5 or 6 hours. There were interviews I ran into 3 o'clock in the morning. And at the end of every interview, I asked one question. I said, okay, the interview's done. I just have one more question. And it's actually a statement that I need a response, yes or no. Nothing else, just yes or no. And they go, okay. So my belief is the United States federal government is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. Before I could get the word history out of my mouth, you could begin to see them leaning in their chair, and then they didn't say it. They shouted it. Yes, yes, yes. And I was like, the first 2 or 3 times, I literally was like, whoa. I thought I was going to get, well, no. Yes, they are. They're absolutely child sex trafficking organization. Absolutely. And that is going to be the hardest thing, I think, for my audience when they see that and I prove it, to actually intellectually accept, oh my God, that is true. That even if 50% of what JJ's saying on camera is true, 50. If 10% of what I'm saying is factually true, we got a major problem.
Yes.
And no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
No one wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an epidemic. I mean, it's beyond an epidemic. I don't even know it's a cancer. It's everything you can imagine. It's evil itself. I mean, it's just evil itself. It's hell spilled over into the fabric of our nation. And I'm speechless. I mean, I know this information, and I know when I see this documentary, it's going to enhance what I already know. But when you hear it again, JJ, in a society that is we're in a glossy society, a coma society, where everything is feel good, make money, as long as you got luxury and you're one of the Kardashians or whatever of life, hey, that's your problem. That's your deal. It doesn't affect me, but it affects all of us. and it is rotting our country to the core. And God is going to judge us. There is no, you can be a religious man or not. He is judging and will judge us for this debauchery, this Moloch type of sin that we're doing to our children. And I think what you're doing, people may not like the word crusader, but to me, it's a crusade of righteousness and heralding out the call that, hey, we got a deep problem here. And it's not just the federal government, obviously, but it's you for
Mm-hmm.
your lack of doing anything or saying anything. And I want to go back real quick. You were talking about saying stuff to people in such a manner. I believe in raw. We're in a time where you got to be raw, JJ. I don't care. I'm sorry about your feelings, but you're right. Could you? I don't want to try to imagine the feelings that they're going through, and you can't muster up some feeling yourself. That's how
Well, I
action
tell these,
happens.
yeah, I tell these people, I say, okay, this is men and women,
Yeah,
but mainly for women, because rape is mainly a woman crime
right,
against a woman.
right.
A woman gets raped one time in her life. If she's the strongest woman possible, she is going to overcome it, but it will define a vast part of who she is
Yes,
because she was violated at the most animal level, and it stays with her. Her whole, she'll never forget it.
yes,
There's no therapy. She's living with this.
yeah.
Now you imagine being raped 700 times a year,
Hmm.
5,000 times a year, 60,000 times by the time you become an adult. This has already been documented.
Yeah.
Do you understand? I asked these gentlemen and the gentleman that chase and the woman that goes undercover and finds these children.
Yeah.
And I asked them a very horrible thing. Tell me what it sounds like, looks like, smells like when you go get a child.
Mm.
And he said, okay. He says, you got to understand there's two different ways this goes down. Okay. The dirty way and it's the luxury way, if you will. They both end in the same.
Yeah.
They both end in either you're kidnapped or sold and you are literally living in a basement, a closet, and you're chained or tied to the floor. And I rape you and multiple men rape you because I sell it. I sell the videos and I sell you for other men to come in and have sex. And he says, these individuals tell me, do you understand the physicality of what we're talking about? We're talking about an adult man with his functions and his erection, the size of his penis, being inserted into a 3-year-old girl's vagina or her anus or her mouth. A boy that's 7 years old being anally raped. He says even if you take a teenage girl, the teenage girl is not built to have multiple partners, and said this is not love making like we think of having sex. This is, I'm beating you up, I'm burning you with cigarettes, you're basically an animal, I just pummel you, and then because you have so many STDs in all of the orifices of your body that you have festering sores in your mouth, your anus, your vagina, that it hurts so bad that in order to get them to shut up, stop crying, then they just drug them up.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, well, what's the luxury? Like, what the hell are you talking about? He says, okay, I am a child sex trafficker. I have a stable of 30 kids. I will send out a menu, a cryptic menu across the globe of what I have. Then I will take over. He always speaks, these guys always speak in these CIA kind of, if I was going to do this, right? So they never have to go on stand and say, yep, I said, if this was going to happen, I would go and I would rent a hangar on an airstrip where nobody has access to. And then I would take all my children and I'd build a stage and I would strip them naked, and one by one, I would videotape them and do a live auction. And then when the winning bid, I get my kid dressed again, I put them on a Learjet and I fly them out of here to wherever they go. Dubai, Switzerland, Ecuador, who knows? He says that's happening every day.
Hmm.
And it's because our federal government created a chaotic, intentional, and purposeful destruction of the American immigration system. They have allowed this giant vacuum to get pushed into America. And in this giant tidal wave, tsunami of crime, you're going to have segmented crime that follows the wake of this giant wave. And one of these is child sex trafficking. I was just having a discussion before I came on with you, with a gentleman. I was trying to explain to him. The drug cartels never dabbled in human trafficking because human trafficking is dirty, like physically dirty. I have to deal with humans. I have to get them over the border, hide them from the border patrol, get them in load carts, drive them to drop houses, take them from drop houses, and take them to their final destination. That's a lot of moving parts. At any one time, law enforcement can come in and I lose my product and it's over. So I spent days, maybe months of planning to get people movement. And my supply chain, I take years to get my supply routes down or have it be destroyed. So narco smugglers wouldn't deal with it. They just dealt with the narco. The heroin and cocaine, fentanyl, they don't talk back to you. They're in packages. But because the federal government removed law enforcement, now the cartels that are drug cartels now took over to human smuggling.
Mm.
And now so let me give you an example of how this works. I'm a human smuggler. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, boy and a girl. Their parents in Central America either rented them or sold them. I know it's hard for people to wrap their brain around this in America. Rented or sold their children. I will put, as a cartel member, I'm going to pin a piece of paper, like an index card, on their shirt. It's going to say the name and the telephone number and the address to where I need to go. Border Patrol takes the child. Within 72 hours, I have to release that child because of the Flores Agreement. That's a whole nother discussion. The Flores Agreement, and I turn them over to NGOs, Catholic Charities, Jewish Family Services, the United Way, Red Cross, whatever. They get them. Then they take that name and that number, and they deliver that child to that address. Who is on the other side of that? The cartel. This is not speculation. This is factually true. So we removed all of the impediments of smuggling and made the federal government the facilitator, the smuggler of this event. So now the cartels are saying, okay, I can't smuggle cocaine over and the Border Patrol is going to let it go. So now I still have to bring the cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, on and on and on through shipments, mules, whatever, to get through the open border. However, once I sell that cocaine and heroin and that customer digests that narcotic, it's over. But now I have a new product. As much as that new product, that cocaine took to take a hit, guess what? I can sell that kid 5, 10, 15, 20 times a day, over and over and over again. And then this is where the real dirty part comes in. If that wasn't dirty enough for you, what happens when I know my child's starting to die? They become useless, right? But the organs inside that little body is worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So now I begin to organ harvest the child. And then I have a dead carcass. And then what do I do with that dead carcass, that corpse? I sell it for child sacrifice. Those are the 3 legs of the stool. Child trafficking, which is sex trafficking, labor trafficking, organ harvesting, and child sacrifice. This is what's happening in America. And guess what, America? It's happening in your town. You think you're immune? You think this is just happening in New York and Chicago? Are you kidding me? It's happening all across America. And then all of these guys that I interviewed, and sometimes when you become myopic in a way that, like, I was a Border Patrol agent, so I focused on everything from the south coming north, right? I never saw anyone running north into Mexico. Never.
Yeah.
I saw hundreds of thousands coming north from the south. And in my brain, because I was wired that way for so long, I never thought of the southbound trafficking of humans until I was brought up and they said, listen, this has already been identified and accepted as facts within the intel agency. And I said, okay, well, what is that? He says, well, the Mexican cartels are working. They're here in America. They're kidnapping our children. They're driving them south into Mexico, and then they're flying them to Africa to be organ harvested.
Wow.
And I said, well, why are they doing that when you have all those African children and South American children? And he said, right or wrong, the people that are in the business believe that the children in America have less parasites in their system. And the people, the kids in Africa and Central America they're more parasitic. So there's higher dollar value. And then you ask yourself, well, that's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. But how do you lose hundreds of thousands of children in America? Where do they go? Where do they go? That's a gosh dang good question. Where do they go? I don't see kids roaming the street. Where are they? They have to be hidden. They have to be sold. Or we'll go one step further. Let's take a quote from Donald Trump, who just said it multiple times, but this past weekend in front of like 30,000 people. And you could hear a pin drop, literally a pin drop in a MAGA rally. Think of that.
Yeah.
When he said, 325,000 children have gone lost under Kamala Harris's watch, and most of them are already dead. You couldn't even hear anybody breathe. It was just silent. So here's a man that has all of the data. Every intel report at its fingertips is repeating this statement. And you know it's true. I know it's true because I'm in this business. But I even know it's even more true because not one media outlet, not one, challenges it. Doesn't call him crazy, xenophobe, nut job. This is conspiracy theory. Nothing. Silence. Dead silence in all media. Why is that? Because everyone knows he's speaking the truth. And yet America does nothing. Our children, it's bad enough that we have foreign national children coming in here and being brutalized and raped and murdered. But our own children are being brutalized, raped, and murdered. And we say nothing. Do you know HHS? Here's something that's amazing. I'm really big on connecting the dots. Nothing in this world is by happenstance or coincidence. I don't believe it. I believe God has a hand in everything. Everything has a purpose you may not know for 30 years, but there is no willy-nilly to life. Just isn't. Health and Human Services. Do you know that Health and Human Services, which oversees all this debacle, do you know they are the largest portion of our federal budget? 23% of the federal budget goes to HHS. That's over $1 trillion. In that $1 trillion, there is 6 to 7 billion, that's with a B, annually to put these children with their sponsors. Do you understand how big of money we're talking about? Inside HHS, do you know that they have absolute oversight over all of child protective services across our nation? Did you know that HHS has all control over the procurement of organs? So where are the kids?
They know.
They all know. That's why President Trump can't get elected, because he has to clean it up. He morally knows that he has to do something. And in order to do something, we can't just, you're not going to rescue these kids. Let's just get let's get into reality.
Yeah.
You're not going to rescue them. They're hidden away, they're holed away, or they're dead. Simple as that. Nobody knows where they are because no one has any identification on who they are. I'm being told, look, let's look at it from even a very selfish American way, okay? And it's not really selfish because it's our kids. I don't want my kid having any problems, right? I have a beautiful 13-year-old son. It's my world. I'd kill for that kid.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to the people the whistleblowers that work inside these child detention facilities. And they tell me, JJ, every one of these kids has trauma. It could be they saw someone get murdered. Majority of them are all sexually traumatized. because 60 to 80% of every woman and child that crosses the border has been raped or sexually assaulted. 60 to 80%. And I say to this woman or these women that tell me this because they were the whistleblowers, well, what did you do? Say you have a young adult like 15 and is telling you he's been raped, a boy, he's been raped multiple times by the smugglers. His father sold him for sex in Guatemala, blah, blah, blah. And she says, we don't do anything. I said, wait a minute. Where are the psychiatrists? Where are the social? No, we don't have any of that. Then what do you do? Well, we move them on as fast as we can. I said, okay, hold on a second. Historically, it's been proven that kids that are involved in sexual assault act out in the same way that they were assaulted. They become ticking time bombs. And she says, you are 100% right. We are sending out hundreds of thousands of ticking time bombs into our society. This is bigger than anything that listen, I'm going to be honest. Every time I flew home from one of these filming sessions, and I did, like I said, 10, 15 of them, I would fly home in the middle of the night, flying into the next day, and I'm sitting in the airplane at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. It's pitch dark, and I'm flying, and all I can think to myself is, what in the hell did I just learn? What in the hell did I just see? And my God, how am I going to articulate this? And God, please give me the courage to just say the truth, because everyone is going to look at me like I have two heads. Same thing when I wrote my book, Invaded. I would sit there at 2 o'clock in the morning because I had to work in the morning. I had to be a father during the in the evening. And I'd sit there and I would reread what I wrote. And I would just put my head down and just say a silent prayer like, this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Everyone's going to mock me. They're going to mock me. They're going to say, you are absolutely conspiracy nuts.
Yeah.
But I went forward because I knew everything that I was writing was factually true. And gosh almighty, if it didn't happen that within 6 months, everything that I wrote came true, and worse, couple areas I missed the mark, even though I projected that this is going to be so insane that no one's going to believe this number. I was off by 50%. Because the numbers grew so fast and so enormous that I was even off the mark.
Oh.
But what do we do? I mean, and this is my biggest question I have, not only for myself, but for everyone that watches my documentary, both of them. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. When you hear it, you can't unhear it. It's going to become a part of you. And my only question is, once you understand what you've watched and you process it and you realize that is factually true, the only question I have is, what are you going to do? Because if you stay silent and complicit, you're complicit. If you're silent, you're complicit. You are now committing a sin because you're not saying anything.
That's right.
But what do? The bare minimum is to talk about it. You don't talk about my movie. You just need to talk about it with your neighbor. Dear God, did you know this is happening? Did you know that we're child sex trafficking in America? What? Yeah. Here, look at these. Here's 2 or 3 websites. Check them out. They're real. But I don't know if America's going to do that. I don't know.
There has to be a movement of the heart, JJ. It's nothing legislative. It's nothing they can do because they're not going to do it. It has to be a movement of the heart. It has to be people hearing your voice, my voice, other voices that are out there. You know, the John the Baptist, if you will, in the wilderness, crying out and saying, you know, we got to do something about this. You know, and there's 3 things I was thinking of. He said, what we can do, we can pray, we can say, say something, and then give. Not everybody can go where you go. That's not their assignment, but you're going there, and we can send you there. We can send you back over there and make your voice louder. And when we get to the end of this program, which is just a little bit from now, we're going to talk about that. We need to support efforts of what you're doing. You know, you're not out there with a tin can looking for money. You're trying to save a child. And, you know, again, I'd love to join you. I'd love to be there, but you know, I can't always be there. I do my own
Right.
assignment. I do world missions. I see this stuff in the world, but to have it in my streets, uh, you know, it's just beyond the imagination. And you know what you're doing by connecting the dots. And I want to say this, and we'll move on. But you know, you were talking about all these other organizations involved, and it hit me real hard. I was like, that means that the medical profession is involved in this. Somebody's taking care of these children. Somebody is harvesting. Somebody's doing the medical side to this. So this thing is huge when you start to unravel and expose it, JJ. This is not a small little mafia, little organization. You're hitting something that's huge.
It is huge because they're all involved. Meaning, when I say all of them involved, I mean every segment of America's society is involved. You're doing 500,000 children a year in America are lost.
Wow.
Look, I know some child protective service people, great people, but there is a segment of that world that is evil.
Yeah.
Think about let's go all the way down to the baseline of America. We spend billions of dollars. Republicans have approved this as well. Billions for Planned Parenthood to kill our babies.
Right.
Harvest their organs. So when people say, "Oh, that organ harvesting, that's crazy." Oh, really? When we have them in multiple interviews admitting that they're harvesting organs of babies?
Yeah.
But we're giving billions of dollars to these organizations, and yet you don't give billions of dollars to Child Protective Services. Why? Why is Child Protective Services underfunded, no manpower, a complete abysmal? We give more money to spade and neuter animals than we do about caring for our children.
Very true.
And that you just go look that up. That's absolutely factually true. Yeah. We're a debased society. We are. I have to have conversations with my 13-year-old son that my father never had to have with me, having to explain to him what transgenderism means, what it means to have 37 genders. Why am I having this conversation with my son? Because men like me, like us, have remained silent. You and I don't remain silent, but the vast majority, millions, tens of millions of men remain silent in the face of evil, not in face of crime. That's bad enough, right? Something crime's happening and you're so gutless and weak, you won't go help out that person because you're afraid of getting hurt or whatever. But in the face of evil, you remain silent. When they brought the LGBTQ flag inside your church, inside God's house, you remain silent. When your priests and your pastors were marrying gay and lesbian couples inside God's church, you said nothing. You said nothing. I'm a Catholic. Our priests were molesting children.
Yes.
And you said nothing. Our Pope, Pope Francis, has brought in the #1 facilitator of all the child sex. He was excommunicated by Pope Benedict. Pope Benedict got forced out. Francis comes in, and who does he make his #1 right-hand man, policy advisor? The same SOB that got excommunicated is now in the Vatican. It's everywhere. This isn't a Catholic, a Baptist, a Protestant, a Jewish. This is all of the above. It's all of the above. But we've allowed it to happen. We've allowed our nation to be completely overrun. Overrun. Let me just give you 2 examples, just right off the top of my head. Aurora, Colorado. The violent Venezuelan prison gangs have now taken over multiple apartment complexes. Taken them over. The people that live there pay them the rent, not the landowner.
Wow.
We're talking about complexes that have 99 units in it. Wow. We're not talking about a 4-plex.
Yeah.
And they're running the racket, the drugs, the human smuggling. Then let's go to Ohio, in Springfield, Ohio. They went from like 38,000 people to 58,000 people in less than 5 years. And guess where they all came from? 20,000 of those 58,000 are illegal aliens from Haiti. Their whole community is devastated. Now there's a direct line from Mauritania. It's the poorest nation on the continent of Africa, has 4.7 million people, and they just started allowing girls to go to school. And because Mauritania's real name is the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. And do you know they found a direct line, you won't believe this, from Mauritania to Cincinnati, Ohio. So now they have thousands of Mauritanians in their city. How do you think that's going to work?
Wow.
How does any of this work? Chicago, New York, Boston, DC, crime waves skyrocketing all over. Denver, Colorado has 10% of their population is illegal aliens and is bringing the city to its knees. 10%. Last year they did over 20,000 hospital visits by illegal aliens, destroying their medical system and their services in Denver. Denver used to be a spectacular city.
Yeah.
Now it's run by absolute nut jobs. Do you know that that's a sanctuary city? New York, Chicago, and Denver, just 3, and Boston, 4 that I can name. They're actually paying airplane tickets of taxpayer money to fly illegal aliens out of their cities. They have ticket and exchange areas in New York City where you go and get a flight. You have to sign a piece of paper saying you'll never come back to New York again. It's insanity. And finally, just so your audience understands what this cost is, okay? This is President Biden's data, not mine. So I know it's a lie, but I'm just going to damn it as it is. On the very low end, the very lowest end of cost in America in the last 4 years is $700 billion for illegals. Everyone that really is in the know, even Biden admits it could be as high as 1.5 trillion. That's with a T in 4 years. Well, did they cut any federal funding? No, they printed 1.5 to $2 trillion to pay for illegal aliens. Thus, now rent's gone up 50%, gas is up 30, 40%, food is skyrocketed. So you're affected. You think you're not being affected? You're being affected.
Yes. Everybody's being affected, no matter small town. Doesn't matter what your zip code is, your address is. You could live on the country club. It's affecting all of us. And JJ, we're going to have to cut this off. I know you got a hard break. You got things to do today. And, the only thing I can kind of surmise all of this is this is just Benjamin Faircloth's opinion. All I see is the word war. I just see war. I don't see, man doing what he's supposed to do. And I don't know, maybe you could correct me on that, but that's just what I see, this festering cesspool that's just going to be so explosive in the coming days. That war in the streets is what we're going to look at. We don't want that. Nobody wants that. But the solutions legislatively, politically, they're just not there. Even religiously, we just don't have the backbone. I hope, JJ, that's not the answer and the outcome. What's your final thoughts on everything? And when you end this, tell us how to support you and get to your website and all that good information, please.
Well, to answer that question, I believe you're absolutely correct. And I have looked at this. So many different ways and tried to convince myself otherwise. I only see 3 outcomes, and 2 of them are the same. President Trump wins, President Harris wins. Both of them are going to have blood on the streets. Yeah. President Trump wins, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the media, Democratic Party is going to stoke all kinds of civil unrest, and it's going to be a bloodbath. Harris wins. They're going to feel so empowered. They're going to feel so emboldened. They are going to come for your guns. They're going to slam the First Amendment. Antifa and Black Lives Matter is going to demand more and more and more, and you're going to bend the knee or you're going to go to jail. Or the only other option is everyone remains silent, and we all die a very slow death. But we are all going to die, and we're going to die in shame as cowards, because our children and grandchildren are going to look at this generation. They're going to openly ask, why were you a coward, Dad? Why did you allow this to happen? What did you do? And let me tell you something. There ain't no way in hell I'm going to have my son look at his dad that way.
No way.
Not going to happen. He's never going to see his dad bend a knee. I don't care if that costs me everything I have. I'm not bending a knee to any of these savages. And that's what I see. I see utter chaos. I don't see any way out of this. I don't. Because we have gone so far down this hill. The only way to get back to normal. Look, we're not talking about economic policy, homelessness, crime. We can work that out. We're talking about men can have babies, tampons in fourth grade bathrooms, mutilating genitalia, bestiality, child sex trafficking, organ harvesting, on and on and on. We have to get back to normal. Is going to be a going to be an effort that's going to take all of your energy, all your time and trial and treasure to get back to normal, not to get back to success, to get back to normal. What does that look like? Do you think the other side is going to allow us to just take back normal God Christian ethos? No.
No.
Please don't be that naive and stupid.
No.
Don't.
No.
And then you ask me, what can you do to support me?
Yeah.
The best thing I can, if you don't have the money, Ryan and I made a decision when we did this documentary, especially when we first started, we said, look, let's not make it 20, 30 bucks. Let's just make it $9.99. If somebody wants VIP, they can get $14.99. It gives you another 40 hours, like another 40 hours of interviews behind the scenes. But if someone just wants $9.99, that's a coffee at Starbucks, a grande latte or whatever. Yeah. Then when we did child sex trafficking, we were like, we don't have the time, the bandwidth, nor do we want to charge someone else another 10 bucks to see this. Let's just throw it in there. And then they get 2 documentaries for $9.99.
Wow.
So for less than $5, you get to watch 2 documentaries for $10, less than $10. I think that's more than fair. Ryan and I went and we did this all on our own dime, tens of thousands of dollars, 60, 70, 80, $100,000. Yeah. Because if we got financing, then they would have a say in what we produce. If I sold it to Amazon Prime or Netflix, they can shelve it like they did Sound of Freedom, and no one would ever see it. I would make $1 million, and then nobody would see what I had to say. Now I have to go answer to God for being greedy and not taking it to people. Right. So the best way that you can support us is the pre-order. Pre-order the documentary. You go and put your email into there, pay the $9.99 or $14.99, and then the day that it drops on September 19th, you get your first documentary. October 24th, the second one goes right to your email. You can stream it on your TV, broadcast on your TV, put on your computer, and you just go to thisistreason.com. Thisistreason.com. And that's the best way to support Ryan and I to do this. And we feel, I hope, I don't want to sound, I hate saying this out loud because I'm such a flawed man to even think that God would use someone like me. That being said, and that being out there is a feeling as if Ryan and I were supposed to do this. Yeah. I don't know what that looks like, Benjamin. I don't know if he's going to use me for something I don't know, and this is going to be a flop and whatever. But I didn't do this in a vacuum. And all this didn't happen for me because I'm some genius and I know all these people and everyone loves me. I met people that I didn't even know existed. I didn't even know certain people. I didn't even know. It wasn't like I couldn't go out and find them. I didn't know they existed. And they would just fall in my lap. And I would interview them and I'd be like, oh my God, that's a giant piece of this puzzle that, holy cow, it answers like 50,000 questions I have. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's another person I didn't even know. All of a sudden I have more. I'm supposed to not do this documentary, maybe ever, child sex trafficking, and God gives me everything I need. Yeah. I don't believe things like that happen. No. I just don't. So that's how you can help me. And more than that is allowing me to come on your show and speak and give me the wide berth that you do to speak, because I can't talk about this in sound bites. It's so layered and so complex, and there's so many evil parts to this machine that I do need a full hour to be able to fully articulate what the hell has happened to our nation and who's doing it. But there's no hiding from this. there's no way the God that I believe in, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. That God that said, if you harm one of my children, I'm casting you into the sea with a millstone around your neck.
That's right.
Good luck. We're not hurting one of his children, Benjamin.
Yeah.
We're hurting millions.
Yes.
Millions.
Yes.
That we even know about, dude.
Yeah. And that's his heritage. You're messing with his heritage.
He created those children.
Yep.
Like he created us. We didn't create them. And we love our children. Can you imagine how much he loved his children that he created out of whole cloth, chose their eye color, chose the way their eyebrows are, chose if they're big, tall, fat, skinny, what their talents are. He chose that. He created that. And you're destroying it. And you think you're getting off scot-free? Okay. Okay. You keep living that fantasy world. You keep living that fantasy world. So, but thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Anytime you can have me back, I would love to come back on. So thank you.
Absolutely. Definitely, JJ. I really appreciate your time as well. Listen, guys, please pray for JJ, his family, pray for his protection, his team, pray for success. I believe this video is going to be explosive. That's what I heard in my heart for the Lord. It's going to be explosive. And we're not talking about dollars and cents. We're just talking about the impact that it's going to have. And please, please consider being a part of it. That is the cheapest documentary I've ever heard, and you could do so much with so little with that. So thank you guys for giving. Pray. We love you and appreciate you. JJ, take care. We're praying for you. And guys, I remind you, you don't have any troubles. All you need is faith in God. I love you.